live.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Guys, it's good to see you. And I hope everybody paying attention or listening realizes that we actually haven't seen each other like in months.
Since the last podcast. Like, I mean, much. In person, no, but even like this.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have talked. And I guess me and Jordan did an unnecessary conversation, which, what the fuck? You haven't done it, Justin.
Would he be good on it?
I don't think I'd be good, only for the sheer fact that, like, I know Jordan too well.
Yeah, but that would be great. You could beat him to the punch.
I've got like 35 years or 33 years of experience with it.
I don't know. I think you should.
Yeah, I would say, not the character, because I think it's just, it's just a part of who Jordan is. We haven't experienced as much of this, which I would say is the best Jordan until now.
Thank you.
I don't.
Well, the world is responding in kind. I do have a new sponsor, Wishbone Dressing, wish-bone.com, people.
Do they have a slogan?
Yeah, it's...
Let me hear it.
Buy our creamy French.
This is like, now that he's not doing, right? The unnecessary conversation guy, he's still there, though, because what people don't know is that's Jordan.
It's not shtick.
No, that's my brother.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you let little of your soft side show, but it is you, I'll say, when you're doing the unnecessary conversations. You show way more of your soft side on this podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, look, here's the thing. I feel more comfortable, and I may have shared this earlier this year, I feel more comfortable leaning into that Jordan because I've spent so much of my life and professional career the past decade plus pulling on the opposite side of that, where I am much more grounded and I'm much more intellectual and emotionally available and all these things. And that's wonderful and necessary and needed for me, especially as I've grown my career in all kinds of ways that have helped me feel really successful and alive. But I'm like also a fucking clown, But I think it's because I feel so comfortable and confident in all these other aspects on the other side of that I feel full permission now and publicly even more so to have more fun and to be a bit loose and to let more of my comedic side come out. Because I know that's not what's going to define me in whole. But all of us are a mix of all kinds of things.
Yeah, it's just nice to see that you get a chance to air that side, for sure. And it's very entertaining and funny. And I think a lot of times your guests think they know what's going to happen, and they think they know how to respond to you. And it's just great watching them faceplant a lot of times and how you handle that. I enjoy it. I like that kind of humor.
Thanks, man. I reach out to everyone beforehand and I say, punch down at me. I should be the fool. Fight back. Defend your audience, because oftentimes I found, so for instance, Matt, before this we were talking about, your buddy Pliny, and I only developed a relationship with him because of the chocolate croissants episode that we did with him. But I liked him a lot. I felt like there was a decent enough rapport where I had the audacity to ask for an hour plus of his time, to perhaps waste his time publicly as he was releasing a new album. And it was hard for me to just shit on him because I didn't know him that well and I wasn't sure how he was going to respond to it. So oftentimes I'm just attacking the audience, and that's sometimes even more fun.
Well, yeah, especially when you have the people that come back every week and they participate. I always see the same few people that are there, some of whom are just your friends who are just watching and enjoying, but then some people who try to get in on it, and those are the people that it's fun to really engage with in a kind of fuckery way.
Yeah. The people who have by far done the best, I feel are the ones that are not friends with Jordan, because I feel when you're friends with the person, it's harder, especially if you don't have it in you. Jordan has it in him to punch down on someone. And these other people, I don't feel like, if you're friendly with someone, it's harder to bring that out of you, especially if that's not in you. And I feel like a lot of the first group of guests, let's say the first like dozen people, they weren't ready. Although you can prepare them, you can tee it up and say, come on, like, just like give it back to me. If you don't have it in you, you're not ready for it, right? But then like Mike Dawes or Pliny and these other people, Robert S. Pearson, I feel like they weave their own angle into it. Pelini was great in that all he wanted was to get Jordan to crack. So he sat like in the camera and did these like very sweet nothings of sorts, just through like visuals with his face, waiting for Jordan just like, like quietly crack. And it took, and I think what's been interesting is, I guess, originally it was an hour you could go live on Instagram. And now you can go 4 hours. And so some of these were going to go, I don't know, some of these went like 2 hours plus, right?
Yeah, and the last one went, we call it the full 4 on Instagram Live.
Oh, the full 4. Okay, right. But I think it took Pelini like an hour and 45 minutes to finally get Jordan to like fall off the camera and laugh, which is incredible, right? This is like when we watch Eric Andre or, a show like that, where you would think at this point, it's like, come on, these guests that are coming on, they should know what they're getting themselves into. If they can like fight back in that way, obviously that's amazing for everyone.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I want to say, it's all ribbon. I do it in the spirit of love. I know there's many people that will watch because, say, there's a Mike Dawes on, who was phenomenal, by the way. Like one of the quickest minds and best just sense of humor that I was able to play the game with. And that's how I look at it. It's just a game. And we're just kind of jabbing back and forth, and some land better than others. And some of the fans watching, like, they just don't get it, or they just don't like it. I was a guest on a wrestling podcast a couple weekends ago, and someone wrote in their comment section, like, if I ever hear another fucking podcast with a fucking cowbell, I'm fucking unsubscribing from your Patreon. And, like, that's fine. So I'm going to show up as me, like I'm having a good time. Most of the people seem to be entertained. And if there's some that just don't like it, I kind of take that as a sign that I'm doing something right, because I'd rather leave an impression than just be not memorable in any way.
Yeah, I really thought it was hilarious watching Mike Dawes. And then I thought Mark did a good job too.
Yeah, Mark Holcomb. Yeah, he's super funny too.
Well, they have a similar sense of wittiness, for sure, him and Mike. And then Pliny, obviously, is just so good at committing to
He's
whatever.
Lovable. He's so lovable.
Yeah. So I want to see, at some point, I think you'll find a guest who just goes silent the whole time. Completely silent. Like, literally doesn't say a word. I don't know who it's going to be, but someone's going to do it, and that'll be a fun challenge for you.
Well, the issue is I would be completely fine sitting in silence as well for now.
Yeah,
but you've already done that. You have that thing with what was the McDonald's?
American McDonald's radical, Matt Ellen. We started. He was a guest many months ago, and then it was so much fun that in the days after, we would just hop on for 10 to 20 minutes at a time, just eating snacks and not saying anything for the entirety of the Instagram Live. So I don't know, this shit's fun. Like, I'm trying to be responsible by not being around people physically, but I'm a hyper social person and was used to a lifestyle where I was out in public more days and nights than not. And thank God for technology to allow me to continue to socialize in interesting, creative, and in some people's opinions, unnecessary ways.
I want to pose a question, actually, because I keep thinking about, Jordan, when you started Beatwell, and you were trying to develop the persona of who is this guy who should be leading these drum circles with the background that you have and what you wanted to convey to the world.
It sucked.
But so I think back, right, and I know you asked me some questions, and we would go back and forth, we would look at clothes, and you would dress a certain way, you would present as a certain person, right? Then as time went on, it evolved, right? You get more confident in the gig, you get more confident in yourself, and you start to say, hey, like, I'm going to let my hair down and try to just be a little bit more authentically me and maybe less of a guy who I'm trying to portray in this role. And Matt, I'll pose the same question to you. You know, I know you've been doing your drum thing for what seems like forever. You know, curious if maybe there was a time where you felt like you had to have a certain look or put on a certain way to get people or your audience to kind of, I don't know if it's buy in a bit more or it's just what you thought you had to represent to the world. Jordan, for you to start, because we can kind of think vividly back to some early promo and other stuff that you were doing and just look at what you were putting out for Bebo. How long did it take for you to start kind of saying, oh, I'm going to like, you know, feel a bit more like just me and less of me trying to be the guy that I want to be?
Great question and conversation, and I think most people can relate to this. I think back to my first day of graduate school, and I still have the student ID, and I look at it, and I'm like, that is clearly me after being in a relatively successful rock band with you, Justin. And I'm like, man, this haircut is stupid, and that polo shirt is stupid. For me, and what I mean by stupid is it didn't feel like me. And it wasn't until the first year of grad school where I found a legitimate way to connect drumming and being me as a musician with that field and with that career trajectory at the time. That's when I started to at least have a bit more vision for myself, and I felt like I can show up in a way that feels more honest or more authentic. But even still, for many years with Beatwell, I was trying to sell not only the public, but professors and colleagues and other students on this idea that I'm going to drum as a modality at a business conference, or I'm going to drum as a modality for group therapy. And that was daunting. So I probably dressed more professionally than I felt comfortable doing. Still relative. I mean, I wasn't putting on a tie or anything, but I tried to be smart. I wanted people to value me and to take me seriously because I figured that the drum circle, quote unquote, was already an uphill battle given decades of a stereotype that has been crystallized in our culture around drum circle people and drum circle culture, being for like lazy, dirty hippies that are just high and don't care about anything. So I wanted to elevate the drum circle in a sense, or elevate drumming in a sense in an academic community, in a clinical community, in a scientific community. And even though I know it's been used for thousands of years for community building and healing, etc., again, I had to be in rhythm with the audiences I was trying to affect change within that were more buttoned up and traditional in our culture. I don't think there was moments. It's just over time, as I became more successful, as I became more confident, and as I just stopped caring as much about what people thought of me, I allowed myself to use language, to use humor, to dress in ways that felt better for me. So I think it's just, there's not moments. It's just an evolution with intention, because I'm always trying to find my way back to myself. And I think we all are in certain ways. Matt, I'm curious for you. You've been a drummer your whole life, but you also have engaged in high-profile ways in the tech space or the entrepreneurial space, or just more generally business communities. I'm curious if you ever felt, or even when you started doing your first drum, just the master sessions or the conferences and things like that, where you're on a stage, the clinics and or the festivals where you're being filmed on stage and you understand this is going to be on YouTube for decades to come, perhaps. Did you ever feel a pressure to dress a certain way or speak a certain way, or even to maybe use more humor when that wouldn't have been the natural go-to for you?
It was so I think for a long time it was based off the type of band that I was in and like what was supposedly the look or style for that band to a degree. But I never fully bought into those styles because I always felt more comfortable doing what I felt was right for me. And like, I hate to define it by, one particular thing, but like the V-neck was like the thing that I felt really comfortable wearing, that just felt good on me. I liked the look so like, I just subscribed to that. And that's what in terms of like costume, so to speak, or what I wore, that's what it was. And people started to know me as that, almost like how people have defined my band as a certain genre, you know? So you embrace it to a degree. I'll come back to that in a second, but like when it comes to like getting outside of being in a band, which, you know, when you're in a band, it's like you do what you want. You're against the norms of society in some ways. I carried that edge with me into business meetings, into conferences. With clinics, I always kind of felt like I was the guy in the band, from the band, doing the thing, so I represented that. I think there's one particular clinic in mind when I did PASIC a bunch of years back. You know, I wore a flannel on stage, and I don't know whether that's because I felt like it was a more formal event, so maybe I let myself to that a little bit, but I really didn't necessarily. It's funny, the big events like that I've done, I always look back and I say like, man, I wish I was just more myself. You know, I wish I did more of what I wanted to do instead of listening to people who said, hey, you should teach this, or you should not teach this, or you should play more versus teach. And the most fun and like the best sort of clinics or educational events that I've done have been the ones where I'm completely myself and go all the way into being comfortable. So I learned that lesson along the way, and now I don't bend for anybody in that regard. I will, unapologetically be the way that I want to be in those situations. But I think what's funny over time is like, I kind of, I still wear V-necks. I love V-necks. They're comfortable. But I also wear other things. Like I'm not wearing one right now. And it's funny when I post videos of, me in a shirt like this or a sweatshirt or a crew neck, people are like, what the hell? That's not Matt. Like, where's Matt? There's nobody. It's like,
yo, who the fuck are you? Like,
right. And it's like,
well,
hey, gent is not a genre. I'll argue that, could be, but it might not be. So that's why we put it on a t-shirt, and we're selling it now. People love it because it's a fun talking point, and it's all fun. I mean, all this stuff is like fun things to help you sort of stand out in your, in your space. And that's how I look at it. But definitely over time, because I've been in this band for so long, because I've established myself as a drummer or an educator, because I've established myself now in a company that's been around for a while, I'm not necessarily, at least on a daily basis, pushing a new thing that needs to fit into a box. And even if I was, I would still, I've learned the lesson of just like, don't change based on the audience you're pushing into. Yeah. I think you'll attract more people to what you're doing by just being you and unapologetically being you. That's how you can, I can tie myself as myself to anything.
Yep.
And that's going to be the best way to do it. And I've learned that, which is great because it takes off a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. There's no pressure that way. So I'll pose that question now to you, Justin, because now, with your job that you've had for the last year or so, and with now, actually being licensed, which I don't know if you want to share that, but that's fucking awesome. Cowbell. So do you feel the pressure of being more professional in terms of how you carry yourself? Not that you're not professional, but I'm just curious to throw that question back at you with the achievements that you have, how it changes your perspective of that for yourself.
Interestingly, nothing really changes for me because typically, like, and I think this is like an easy thing to be said. I typically wear a very similar dark jean every day. It's usually just the shoes that change. I'm very comfortable in in my stretch neck black t-shirt, and this is kind of like, this has been my go-to for a pretty long period of time. And I think in my head, I have ideas of why I went that way, what it represents to me and the way that it feels. It's not like a Steve Jobs thing where I'm going to wear the same thing every day because that makes my life a little bit more simple and I can focus on other tasks. It's just what has always made me feel most authentically me and most comfortable. And as a guy who has always been into fashion, I think this was, from years and years of kind of trial and error, this is what landed me just feeling most like me. And very glad that I feel like in this attire, I'm representing what's on the inside just now on the outside. And the great thing about that is as I wear it, I'm comfortable. I'm more comfortable in my own skin in this versus if I was like wearing a suit or something different and trying to go out and do the same thing. And I think that's it's like, the V-neck or any of these things. And I was thinking about, Matt, as you were talking about this stuff, and then you wear something different and people like call you out on it, or going and doing what someone else wants you to do. It's like you want to dress for what you're doing, but at the same time, if you don't feel comfortable, it's going to be hard to go out there and do what you want to do and portray and convey the message that you're trying to convey, right? So I'm glad that I could always use what I'm currently wearing, and I still feel professional, and nothing really has to change. And I'm really glad that, look, yes, now things are a bit more, I don't know, for lack of better words, I mean, they're just a little bit more legit now, because now everything, like the license out of the way, I've taken the exams, and all that's behind me. But I'm not going to change anything. Although if I were to start posting more, I think I would try to just make sure it's in the voice that I want it to be, and that's something, just because it's a bit newer still, that I haven't really sat back and thought about. And although part of me maybe wants that to come faster, I still have to realize that this is still new territory, and I'm still navigating that, and I think that is probably more my version of what Jordan went through initially in trying to portray himself a certain way, but through clothes.
So you brought up a few good points. One, the distinction between how we express ourselves physically in dress, but also how we express ourselves through the stories we tell and the energy that we express, etc. I've been transitioning to a Beatwell professional coaching practice, and I've noticed that a lot of the people that I'm working with, a lot of what's been valuable for them is helping them to be able to identify, but then ultimately express a unique, authentic professional identity. Most people haven't considered, how do I speak about what I do? How do I speak about the value I can be to a specific audience in the world? So for you, Justin, I hear that you haven't put as much effort into that. I would love to do that work together with you sooner than later. But I think you're bearing the lead when it comes to your physical dress. You're sharing with the audience right now that I wear a simple black shirt and a simple black jean. You wear leopard shoes, but you're working in a long-term care facility. So I know for you, it's like, well, those are just my shoes. And to Matt and I, it's like, well, those are just his shoes. But to other people that have no perception of you, and to other people that have ideas or have their own stories of this is what a health professional presents physically in this setting, leopard shoes probably would not be what they have in mind. So I'm curious, I'd imagine you have worn those shoes, and I'd imagine you've gotten plenty of people who just fucking love them and want to rock with you. And there's probably some people that kind of look sideways, and then your personality and your intellect will bring them back around once they start interacting with you. But I'm curious if that was ever a thing that you had to consider when you first started working there earlier this year.
So no. And that's just something that I wouldn't necessarily want to change. Fortunately, they are a bit more, I guess you could say, on the dressy side, so they still kind of fit the bill, if there was one. And I guess, to be fair, in a profession, dietetics, that's heavily female. When you get the guys that enter into that space, I feel like it's either from the side of like a sports nutrition, and they're going to wear a very specific, a lot of those guys have a very specific defined look that kind of comes more of like the gym, the coach, etc., just a little bit more amplified because they're not, in the gym setting most of the time. And then on the other side, there is, I think, at least the people that are kind of out in front, I see a little bit more flamboyance. I see a lot of the maybe like a Gucci loafer of sorts, but with more of a suit feel. And I think for me, I kind of probably, kind of to maybe Matt's early point, I kind of go with what felt good as a musician. as someone who might be on stage performing and all these other things. And this has always felt good to me as like, and I call it, it's like my cartoon character look, because it's always often the same,
Doug
hence
Funny.
like Doug Funny. And the nice thing is I feel like it is, a bit of the chameleon outfit of sorts. Like I can kind of go into different roles, but in wearing the same thing that always makes me feel comfortable. And I think it's, there's something huge to be said about feeling comfortable in your own skin, but also feeling comfortable in the stuff that covers the skin. And you want to be, look, a lot of people I think put on certain clothes to try to feel or portray, a certain way into the world from a sociology standpoint, but it's not really them. And I think it really takes a concerted effort, especially if you're not into fashion, to trial and error until you get to that point, which I want to circle back because Jordan, the look that you currently have, the curls and the big hair, is very reminiscent of the guy that you were, or at least that you looked like, rather, not are, but, were back then. Mm-hmm. Is there something that you can draw of inspiration or something you can kind of say to yourself, hey, back then, maybe that was a bit more authentic to me, just because it was a little bit more free and you were a little bit more of that comedic side of Jordan?
I think in those ways, yes. Obviously, in other ways, I've matured greatly. But
Absolutely.
And look, I'm many weeks past due for a haircut. I had one scheduled weeks ago, and then being exposed to someone out of an abundance of caution, I canceled it and stayed home for a few days. So I need a haircut. If that's why I'm wearing this headband more often than not right now. But yeah, having the hair feels more free right now, and I think in many ways, the ways I've allowed myself to be expressive in the world I feel more free. It feels good. I'm not sure if we're entirely boring Matt, and he's now just back to his book.
It's fine. Let me pose something to Matt. Matt, as a guy who doesn't have hair and hasn't been able to use that, which I think a lot of people end up doing. Look in the metal scene, right? Long hair, right, or a mohawk or something of that nature can be a very big statement, kind of like the way that I wear these pointed leopard shoes, a la the Licorice Man in Candyland. Without having that, and knowing kind of how you dress, has there ever been a time where you felt like, I might want to do something a little different? Although I got put into a box as the V-neck guy, and you went off and did the great thing that you often do, and you made light of it and did a whole, you did a business on it, right? People wore the V-neck, and that was wonderful. Has there ever been a time where you're like, I'm going to wear a fucking cape?
No, but I wear hats.
That's true. That's true.
And if anything, I've stopped wearing hats, as frequently as I used to. Partially, again, it's just, I think I got to a point where it's just like I'm embracing who I am and what I want to wear and how I want to look, and just, this is me. I don't give a shit anymore. Because there obviously there's always a time when you want to appeal to the people that support you and that know you as a certain thing. But it's like, I don't think me embracing myself as me changes that. If anything, I think it probably warrants more respect from people who see that and can go, oh yeah, that's cool. He's just being himself. Like, that's awesome. I didn't know Matt had a top of a head that didn't have a hat on it.
It's like the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Well, right. It's like, and it's funny. I was just going to mention that because people were saying, "Oh, Matt's the Chad Smith of metal,"
right?
And that's cool. I'll take it all day. But
Fantastic.
I also I'm also not trying to be the Chad Smith of metal in terms of my look and what I wear and how I carry myself. I liked that look for me, but it also wouldn't deter me from wearing a hat because people say that. I don't care. That's fine. Let people say that if they want to. Let people comment on the V-necks if they want to. I just, it's funny. The one thing that I'll say that I've started doing more as well, and it's interesting that we're talking about clothing, is
this is our 2020 wrap up. The fashion edition.
Well, it's fun. So I was somewhere recently. I went I went over to get some work done on my car with Sam, with our good friend Sam, and Sam was like, yeah, one of the guys in the back was like, yeah, I don't get his style. Like the top and the bottom don't match.
Whoa, like were you wearing some shorts?
No, I'm wearing like my joggers. Like,
yeah.
So like, and I'm big and broad up top, and then I'm wearing these joggers that are like tight fitting, but it's like, I don't care. Like it's really comfortable and it feels very me, and that's fine. I don't care if people think I look goofy or weird. Like, I think you only look weird if you don't own it.
Yeah.
Like if you're wearing something because you think you should, or you're, like, you can always experiment and realize, oh, this doesn't fit, and that's fine. But like, if you truly feel yourself in whatever you're wearing or whatever you're doing or however you're speaking or carrying yourself or interacting with other people, then that's what you should do. And people will learn to accept that. Similarly to like the leopard shoes, it's like you own it. So people will look at you and they won't look at it as something that stands out awkwardly or odd because it fits you. And same thing with your look now, Jordan, with the way that you've sort of just embraced being yourself and visualizing who you are.
It's with anything, right? Like you could play drums a certain way that people just don't understand at first. And if you're like, yeah, but like, this is how I love to do said X thing, you just own it, right? And I think that's for everyone in anything you're doing, right?
Right. And the cool part about this is, who knows in 5 years or even a month what we're going to be doing differently. Like, I could realize all of a sudden that, like, I really am into like, I don't know,
shorts.
Hunting attire. And I'm going to start wearing like, hunting camouflage. I'm just, who knows? It's like, and then that becomes me, and that's just who I am.
I mean, look what you're wearing on the bottom.
He's got camo.
Higher. Yeah, okay.
I got camo.
Right.
Yeah.
So to be fair, you're halfway there.
Yeah, but I've been doing this for a while, so.
Well, I do want to say, I love the joggers look. It's very comfortable. I would even call it Halpern chic, perhaps. And you brought up your Jeep, and that's where I wanted to slightly pivot the conversation. What I've always admired about you, Matt, and I think a lot of the people that pay attention to you probably find inspiration within you, is that not just in the dress or how we verbally communicate, but in the ways in which you have followed your own individual passions, which you have many. You have found really unique ways to follow that and explore that. A perfect example is the video that you produced, like with your vehicle and the drum set. Like, I don't know if there's other drummers who have done anything quite like that with that level of production, but I think you've been really good at demonstrating your comfort in falling in love with something or wanting to explore something in deeper ways, whether it's your car or coffee or an ice bath or any number of things. And you've been able to find unique ways to explore that. You can leverage your skill as a drummer. You can leverage your talents as a drummer and your audience that you've earned as a drummer, and then create something new with the Jeep brand, or just create something new in the automotive space. For example, one of many things. And I don't see a lot of people doing that perhaps as frequently and at the levels just of depth and creativity that you're able to do that. They're probably, if you had, say, like a personal manager of sorts, he, she, or they could say, hey, Matt, I don't know if the car thing is the best use of your resources, your time, your money, whatever, right now, the attention that your fans are willing to give you. That could be advice that others, may have given you or perhaps would, because that doesn't necessarily help them see the North Star of you becoming the drummer that they think you should be. I'd argue that you are a leader in a sense of showing, hey, I'm a human being with diverse interests that change and evolve over time because you're a human being that is living. And of course we're going to change and evolve over time. But it seems like that hasn't stopped you from trying new things, exploring new things, and sharing it publicly with your audience. And I think that's something to be acknowledged publicly, and at least from a personal perspective, I admire it and I really respect it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm going to echo the same sentiments and pose a question. I know that your bandmates, and then others in your circle, there are car guys out there, right?
Yeah.
Misha or Tosin, et cetera, right? Are seem like guys that do share this kind of stuff, into F1 racing. So it's not like you don't have friends in your inner circle that you could go to and chop it up about cars, right? Completely void of music, which might seem like, oh, we just talk music all day. But no, you've got other interests. We could talk about this stuff. Does it ever feel like out of necessity that you just want to facilitate more of a conversation about something that you're currently into, be it coffee or the Trackhawk or something else, and you're just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to show something that I love and see if I can get some other people into it because I'm interested just in engaging more in that currently? Does it ever feel that way?
Maybe not deliberately in that sense, but sure. I mean, it's always great to find other connecting points with people that pay attention to me because of one specific thing. Like people that follow me because of the band also have other interests in life. And if you can create more connecting points, then it just, it ties you together with those people in more authentic ways, I should say. So that's definitely like, a part of it, but not necessarily the main reason. I mean, the main reason is just like Jordan said, I am very open to finding new interests in my life. And I'm always looking for things that I can latch on to genuinely and enjoy. And I think it's natural to want to share those things, and I think for me, the best way to do that is to try to come up with and really this is just because it's fun for me, come up with creative ways to tie it in. So like that shoot that we did with the vehicle, it certainly was like a goofy idea at first, where I'm on the phone with the company that makes the exhaust and my buddy Josh, and we're talking about like different cool creative things we could do, and threw it out there almost tongue in cheek of like, well, we could do like a rev off with me on the drums and the car, and everybody on the call is laughing and saying how ridiculous that is, and everyone is saying that let's embrace that ridiculousness, because why not? And my feeling is like, yeah, like if it's all in good fun, then ridiculousness is totally fine. And
I mean, that's like the height of it. Yeah.
Well, right.
Why
And
would you stay
it's
in
like,
the box?
what are you going to do? Like the same thing that everybody else does. Like, I also preach all the time to people, embrace your talents, embrace your strengths, and try to use, the things that you're good at with other things you're good at, and, connect the dots between the things that you do so that you can create something that is very different or special, or that helps you stand out. And that's that in practice, right? Now, did I feel fully comfortable when it came time to press the publish button? No, honestly, I didn't. I was like anxious because I knew it was weird and ridiculous, and I knew a lot of people wouldn't get it. I knew a lot of people would be like, wait, I don't understand. Like, what did I just watch? Is this serious? Like, a lot of people didn't understand that it was supposed to be essentially comedic in a way, and ridiculous and off the wall, and not a serious thing at all. It was just a fun thing. So, it's funny you talk about a personal manager. I deliberated with the band's manager, Wayne, about this a lot. And he was like, dude, I think it's amazing. I think it's great. I think it's hilarious. I think it's different. I think it ties into drumming. I think, it ties into your interests. This is awesome. We should totally put this out. You should totally put it on Periphery's YouTube. You should put it on all the socials. You should put it everywhere. Where I was like, I don't know if I should put it on the Periphery YouTube. I don't know if I should do that. It's my thing, not the band's. And he's like, no, do it. It's awesome. Like, this is new, fun, different shit to push out there.
The Periphery logo was on the video, yes?
Yeah.
So, and I noticed that. So it was like, yeah, this is not just Matt Halpern, but like the band is embracing this, piece of art.
Yeah, well, sure. And like, I had a call with Misha, after, well, I mean, he knew about it beforehand. He thought it was great, but even after it went live, and I'm seeing, you know, this very normal sort of, you know, mixed pool of comments and thoughts about it, and I'm saying to him, like, dude, you know, I'm having doubts and insecurities about it, because some people are saying, I should rephrase that. The majority of people are saying this is awesome, this is hilarious, this is totally cool, I get it, this is, you know, one of the funnest things I've seen. But then you have this other contingent that are like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I just wasted 2 minutes of my life. You know, I was a fan and now I'm not. And I called Misha and I was like, I feel like I made a mistake posting it. And he's like, why would you think that? Like, he just kind of reassured me, like, one, it's awesome. Two, if you think about it, it's like every kid's dream who likes drums and cars. Like, this is a dream come true to combine a fucking really cool car with a really cool drum set, like, and playing drums. Like, what's there to feel stupid about? Like, so he brought me back to center in that way. And I think it's important for everybody listening to know, it's like, even though I like, my experience and my confidence in myself doesn't mean that there isn't self-doubt in the process or even after. It's there, but I've learned through practicing going for things that, like, it's always worth it to go for it, even if it feels a little bit weird or scary, because in the end, the people that really know you, if you're being true to yourself, are gonna be in your corner, right? And they'll be honest about it. And, like, I would have been equally happy in my conversations with Misha and our manager if they had said, you know what, like, it didn't really hit the mark, and we learned a lesson, and that's cool, and no worries. Like, you did it, great, fine. I would have been equally happy having them been honest about it from that perspective. But I really trust them, and I think their perspective was how I felt about it. And that makes me feel reassured in that, who gives a shit what the majority of people think or not? If I'm into it, I'm going to go for it. And, you know, I gained some really cool things from that. So, and one of the biggest things was just more reassurance and confidence to try new weird shit.
Matt, I have a question for you, and I think this is good for a lot of people listening. I think a lot of people they're not at that level where you are currently, or if someone is starting a new venture, right? Which we've all been there with something of this nature. But Matt, specifically, because you are really good at kind of diversifying what the content that you put out there into the world, and when you are into something, you put it out there, and you might have trepidation, or you know, there might be apprehension and anxiety, but oftentimes it seems like you still go for it versus not. If you were starting new with one specific thing, be it drumming or coffee or cars, etc., do you think you would still want to kind of mono the one thing for a period of time before you started introducing something else? Or do you think it might be better for someone nowadays to tap into, you know, whether it's a few or it's like a multitude of things that they're actually into, and kind of put out a bunch of content of the stuff that they're into?
I think it really depends on the person, genuinely. Like, because there's some people who are really good at one thing, and that's what they should do.
Right.
You know, that's what they should do. And then there's other people that have the ability to kind of do a bunch of things and tie it all together, and it's really authentic. But so I think it makes sense in that way, you know, like, it depends on, I don't know. I mean, I would say this from a general standpoint, it's always better if you're starting fresh, focus on the thing that you're most passionate about and best at, and really go all out with that until you get that to a point where you have some room to start introducing real other passions, you know, to your mix of sharing, right? But until that point, you know, if it doesn't feel right, then stick with what you're good at and let that be it, you know, and that's fine. There's no reason not to do that if what you're doing is working and it feels good and you're fulfilled. But if you feel like you need to sort of diversify and, like, expand the things you put out there, then by all means give it a try. But I wouldn't do like a million things at once. I would, start with one, and then if you can add one more, then great, and then see how that goes. That would be just general advice, without knowing the specific.
Of course, yeah, the individual
thing,
who's doing it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'll use myself as an example. Half hour ago, I was talking about starting graduate school in clinical and counseling psychology, but it wasn't until I embraced myself as a musician where I started to feel a bit more confident and alive in that journey that I was choosing for myself at that time. And so really, I feel grounded as a musician. Up until that point, I'd spent much of my energy focused on developing my skills and interests as a musician and within a music community. Now, of course, through doing that, playing in bands, etc., I got all kinds of skills that I chose to develop in just running a business more generally, or brand, or learning how to communicate with the world. But for me, it was being hyper-focused on who can I connect with, who can I learn from, how much experience can I get to become a really good drummer within this space of mental health and wellness. And I really focused on that and figured that was a unique enough combination to be able to stand out, to be able to be memorable as I'm interacting with very diverse communities, both on the ground and online. And once I got to a point where I felt comfortable in my success of those things, that's when I think I gave myself room to try the pro wrestling thing when I took on that full-time job at Ring of Honor, because I felt like it wouldn't diminish everything I had worked for. In fact, it was the fact that I had invested so much into being a mental health professional who was a drummer that allowed me to tell a more compelling story, to get Ring of Honor to create a full-time position for me. So it's like this building block kind of thing where I'm using all of that investment prior to now get the next thing that was desirable. Because pro wrestling has always been another passion of my life, but I think just say 10 years ago, I tried to do pro wrestling and music and mental health. I probably wouldn't have gotten great results in either of those. So now starting the podcast with you guys, this was another way for me to continue developing skills as a content creator and as a more public communicator. Starting next month, I'm starting a pro wrestling podcast project within a pro wrestling community. Wei Ting will be the co-host. He was a prior guest this summer on Chocolate Croissants and Unnecessary Conversations. But the point is, I'm now able to, he trusts me because I've shown over time that I'm able to be valuable as a musician and as a mental health professional and in the pro wrestling space and as a content creator as well. But for me, like, all of this is connected. And the point in me sharing this is that I'm getting to live multiple dreams of mine. I mean, legit. Like, I'm not afraid to be like a fucking fanboy about it. I mean, I've been listening to Wei Ting for almost a decade. I have a shirt with his fucking face on it. So starting a podcast with him for a pro wrestling audience, but not necessarily talking about pro wrestling, talking about a lot of the things that the three of us talk about publicly. Starting it with him is kind of like starting a band with my favorite musician. And in that sense, like, what a dream come true. But the reason I'm sharing all of this is because it was focusing on specific things and going really, really deep and trying to become world class within it that then opened me up to the opportunity to work within pro wrestling at the highest level, which then opened up the opportunity to have the audacity to suggest starting my own podcast with my favorite podcaster. So the diversity is great, but the way I would answer it is get really good at one thing first, and then that would afford you the leverage to, get the world to perhaps trust you a bit more, because you have something really unique and concrete of value that you can demonstrate. So that's worked for me.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I like it.
Absolutely.
In my head, I see
Makes
you
sense.
throwing a dart at a dartboard and you keep hitting the bullseye. versus just aimlessly throwing and seeing just whatever if it'll eventually just stick.
Well, that's the thing. I often talk about North Stars, and in the coaching service that I'm now workshopping, look, that's what's worked for me. It's like I'm not going to accomplish anything of note unless I have a clear vision for what I'm achieving, and it's starting with that North Star and then working backwards, and then your behaviors start mapping to that North Star. And look, I never thought that I would work at Ring of Honor. In 2014, I made a Facebook post saying I am intending and I want to share a Beat Well Play Shop with the Ring of Honor roster. And that started mapping some of my behaviors toward paying more attention to the company, figuring out who works there, etc. And that ended up getting me a full-time job. With Wei Ting and his post-wrestling community, my intention for years was I want to be a guest on their Christmas show. That was the goal. Never thinking I may end up just getting my own show on their post-wrestling network. But again, I had a North Star. I wasn't quite sure how that would pan out, but it at least created vision and direction in which I could invest my energy and my attention to get closer to some version of what I most desired in life. But it starts with having a vision. It starts with being able to affirm, this is where I would perhaps like to be in a future reality for myself.
There you go. I know we have to take this train home shortly. Yeah, I think we're kind of like rounding the end of third here.
The end of third? What kind of reference is that?
Yeah, kind of like the.
Well, we're almost home.
Right. This is like the third portion, or like the third portion of the show. Kind of like we had the beginning, we had the fashion conversation, and now we're taking this train home. And as we take this train home, I think we should end on some kind of 2020 note. And I'm just curious, like, you guys have any favorites, highlights, anything you want to share? The best of 2020. I mean, look, we brought the podcast back. There was a point where we were afraid to touch the Amazon package.
Oh,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's adaptation, right? It's like we've all adapted to this new reality that we live in, that everybody in the world is living in. And that's the reminder that I give myself when I have frustrated moments of like having to continuously do the crap that we're doing right now based on the world around us, is that like I'm not the only one dealing with this by any means. And the whole world is dealing with this. So stop overwhelming yourself, stop making it seem like you're more important in that way, and just continue to ride the roller coaster until one day you can get off and hop on a new ride. And I think that's a really important perspective to remind yourself of, that like we're all in this together in different varying ways, but for the most part, we all have had to figure out how to navigate a whole new world that we didn't expect to be, having to embark on.
Agreed. Justin, I don't know if I caught a slight smile as he said a whole new world, and perhaps your mind went to Aladdin.
Of course.
But it's these subtle things that I can pick up on.
It's just the words, man. Tie some words together.
But now in my head, you're on a magic carpet.
Well, we all are.
Well, here's the thing. So speaking
Jordan,
of
Jordan, did you just hear what Matt said? We all are. We're all on a
we
magic
all are,
carpet,
and we're
right?
learning how to ride this brand new piece of magic carpet, across this whole new world. And some of us are riding it better and faster than others. Some of us are riding it higher. Some of us are riding it lower. Some of us are, crashing. You never know. I mean, everybody's on their own little right.
This has been exactly. The year of the pivot. Like, can you handle whatever's coming, and can you slightly navigate yourself to feeling? Because this is not like for a long time. And I thought, Matt, you were going to say this is like the new norm, but obviously this is just the norm now. This is it. And
yeah, until something changes to where like we can, I don't know if it's get back to what it was before or just sort of create a new version of what it was before. until that happens, then yes, this is normal now. And that is the thing. It's like we've adapted, and this is normal. You know, going to a public place and not seeing someone with a mask is really abnormal compared to what we're used to now, you know, and there's good reason for everybody sort of working together, because the one thing I don't want to discount here is, you know, the people who have had a fucking horrendous and, you know, ultimately for some people, you know, the worst possible scenario with this disease.
Right.
And it's very real in that sense. And it is good that people, the majority of people have adapted and hopefully started, even if they don't believe in it for themselves, at least respecting other people's, you know, positions on it and doing the right thing when you are out interfacing with the world. You know, it's so anyway, to that point, it's just what is normal now to see in our world is totally different than it was a year ago.
Of course. Yeah.
Justin, I'm curious, like what your key takeaway is, and then I'll offer mine as we take it out.
Sure. I mean, do you just in like the year in total, or something that, because I think when I posed the question, it was where I was asking, you know, if anyone, you know, just kind of highlights of the year and to take it off on a high note. But I mean, you know, I can answer it similarly to Matt.
Well, yeah, I think your experience now that we've gotten through close to a full year of this strange new life.
Sure. I mean,
you know,
yeah. Look. Matt, you're completely right. There are some people out there that have experienced a year that is, you know, that you couldn't even have fathomed, right? There would be something that comes that we don't really know much about, and that, you know, that your loved ones or you specifically, you know, someone would have gotten, and then you know, your whole world gets turned upside down. I know, fortunately for the three of us, we've been okay. We've been, you know, mostly healthy, you know, and what a gift that is. Yeah, look, this year's been wild, and I think back to when we first started this, and I know that, you know, Matt and Jordan, you guys hadn't really left the house, and there was all this just anxiety and fear of kind of what was on the other side of the door. Whereas for me, it became very normalized to just keep moving forward. I had to keep getting up and leaving the house and going to a job and you know, in a facility where there was a lot of COVID, and there was a lot of COVID conversations, and, you know, wearing the right PPE and all this kind of stuff. So for me, I think I had to adapt quickly to all of this stuff. I hope that, you know, one day, kind of hindsight reflection, we'll be able to look back on this and realize how strong we are and how well we all adapted, and you know, what kind of life lessons and skills we can learn from that, really to apply to anything. I think it's still too fresh, and it's still too new to really be able to look at. But I think if we actually sat down and thought about it, like, man, like all of us that are in this together, and we're obviously all in this together in the whole world, you know, I mean, credit to all of us. Like, everyone, I think, is doing, most of us are doing very well adapting to what this is, and I think you can apply that to anything, and that should give us all, I think, it gave me, you know, strength and confidence in whatever we do. Although I still think there's kind of like, you know, Matt, you were saying with the car, you know, putting the Jeep stuff out. It's like there's 1,000 positive comments and that one negative one that kind of shoves us all the wrong way. You know, I think we can get better with how we handle all that stuff. But I think it's similar to this year. We're adapting to you know, what it is, and I think we've done a great job. It's been a crazy year. It's really been a crazy year, and it's coming to an end. And I think for a lot of people, it feels like we're kind of like closing the book and opening a new. And come Friday, you know, whenever this comes out, or January 1, it's all going to be different. But it's you know, it's still going to be the same. We're still riding this wave. I think as a whole, it's taught me that we can all adapt very well to this together, and we're doing it, which is kind of nice.
Well said. I think one of the themes that the both of you presented was the fact that we're doing this together, the universality of this. My hope is that one of the lessons many of us learned from this year is how connected we truly are, both in the ways in which our behaviors may affect others, with something as specific as a virus, or in more subtle ways, just based on general kindness, opening a door for a stranger, or when it's safe to not have the mask anymore, to just smile at a stranger, or to ask someone how they're doing. Like, we're all connected. And not only is offering love and things like that helpful to others, and then in turn it may inspire them to pass it on, but ultimately we're loving ourselves when we're sharing love. So I think that's important to note. I was going somewhere with the Magic Carpet Ride or the Disney thing, The Whole New World. I don't know, have you guys seen the movie Soul yet?
Not yet. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't think this is quite a spoiler, but if you're listening or watching and you're like super vigilant on spoilers, then like just get the fuck out of here right now. But really, a lot of this podcast, we're talking about like our passions and infusing our passions into our career or our art or the ways in which we make a dollar. And I think all of that is beautiful and wonderful, and I'm fully on board with that. But the punchline of Soul, focused on a jazz musician trying to make his dreams come true as a performing jazz musician, the punchline lesson of the movie is to just be grateful for the sheer fact and privilege of being a human being that's alive in every moment. Whether that's how good the food tastes, or how kind the stranger is, or how sweet the birds sound, perhaps. That's kind of the punchline. And there's no one right answer. It's a push and pull. Of course, we can have these big dreams and chase after goals. But again, if we're only focused on that outcome and we miss out on just the moment-to-moment experience of being fully alive as a human being, well then, what was it all really for? So I think it's all in the balance. So for me, what I take from this year and experiencing not only a global pandemic that in many ways took away a lot of my work, which I'm interacting with people using physical objects, namely instruments, in a physical room. A lot has been taken away from me this year. At the same time, like I got to Skype with Donnie Wahlberg. Or I got to do 28 weeks of these unnecessary conversations. Or I created room to develop a relationship with my favorite podcaster and now start a new energy-fulfilling, life-fulfilling project with him. And I can name a half dozen or more things like that happened as a result of more space and opportunity becoming available to me this year. And the ways in which I chose to respond to them instead of just endlessly playing a victim to the external circumstances. But the thing I think I learned the most is how quickly everything can change. And because of that, the importance of honoring the moment and expressing gratitude for the moment, whether publicly like the three of us do most mornings in the Global Gratitude Jar on Facebook. Feel free to join us there. Or just in our moment, everyday, interpersonal lives of just going outside and you see the moon and it's clear, and just noticing gratitude for that, how beautiful that can be, and how miraculous something that we often take for granted can be. Because we don't know what tomorrow brings. And tomorrow, quite frankly, isn't guaranteed for any of us. So I think that's the most profound, enduring lesson that I took from this past year. I want to say publicly that I love you both. I'm really glad we got to do the episodes we did this year. And obviously, as this project has evolved and as things come up in our individual lives, it often doesn't make sense for us to do this every single week or even with some level of consistency throughout the years. But at least in this moment, I feel, really fortunate to be having a meaningful conversation with the two of you. So before I literally, I don't know, you said rounding thirds. Still, I don't know if that's like a trimester pun or if that's like a hockey reference.
Baseball.
I don't think it is. I don't know. It might be baseball. It could be something else. I listened to much of one podcast, and it feels like they kind of do it.
Oh, there's the three bases, but there's four bases, but you round the third base.
Right. So you're kind of taking
heading home.
You're taking it home, right? But I also kind of think of it like, in threes,
Look at Justin with the baseball, the inside baseball, we could call it.
Don't give me credit. This is all Ariel Helwani. He gets the credit.
Is there? Also, I want to state publicly, at some point when it's safe, I will be playing a game of tennis with Robert S. Pearson.
Whoa.
Is there anything else you guys would like to share before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I'd like to get in on some Canadian doubles.
I'd like you guys just to film that.
Do you play tennis, Matt?
No.
Would
you never did?
Would you play tennis?
I did when I was younger.
Would you?
No, probably not. Probably maybe. I don't know. I don't even have a racket anymore.
You have a rack though. How's your new rack downstairs?
It's awesome, and I'm really glad that it's finally built and secure, and it folds in on itself, so you can make more room if you need to.
Jordan, you better get ready. Matt's coming. 2021.
Yeah,
it's gonna be his year.
Yeah, man. Hey, Matt, what else are you gonna do when you have nowhere to go? Just take care of yourself, right? Do cool things that will help you improve mentally and physically if you can.
Hey, and check out Matt's coming with the I was gonna say the ice bucket challenge.
Yeah,
Matt's doing the polar plunge at home.
The polar plunge at home every day in January. Yep, that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Well, if you're listening or watching this now, we are probably in the month of January 2021. So at Matt Periphery for more information on that. Help a brother out as he tries to do good in the world with the platform that he has earned over the years. Is that it, guys? We're done? We good?
Take it home.
It seems like we are. Facebook.com/groups/chocolate croissants. Not much energy or life in there currently day to day. It seems like perhaps that it goes hand in hand with the amount that we put out into the world with these episodes, but it's still there. There's many kind, lovely, creative, interesting, compassionate people in that private Facebook group. Again, facebook.com/groups/chocolate croissants. You're welcome to join us there and feel free to start a conversation. We see him, and I'll comment if you offer something. You got to tee it up. And then I can hit it up. It's
a baseball.
T-ball.
It's a baseball reference.
I played T-ball one season as a child. It was a disaster, quite frankly. You can rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, people. Honestly, we appreciate your attention. We don't take it for granted. We know that it is a privilege. We hope you are doing well. We hope your family and your friends are safe and secure. Give them a call. Let them know that you love them. And we don't know the next time we'll have an episode. But what I can guarantee is that at some point there will be another episode of the Chocolate Croissants podcast. You can look at the copy below, and I don't know, I'll probably have a link for wish-bone.com. Please be kind to yourself. Happy New Year. I'm going to throw the bells across the room. It's been a long time since I did that on Skype. I do it often on Twitch and Instagram Live now, but Skype, it's been a couple months.
We gotta go.
We gotta go. I feel like this was a terrible ending to a wonderful episode, however. I'm going to say, please be kind to yourself. And now I'm going to try out a new catchphrase to see if this works. Perhaps we'll include it in future episodes whenever they may be. See you next time.